Forward 50 years ago, films like This Planet Earth, When Worlds Collide, The Thing, X-Men, and most importantly, The Day the Earth Stood Still, introduced us to the flying saucer as an icon of our future. Everyone knew the catchphrase, Claytu, Barada, Nikto. People reported seeing UFOs in every backyard, but very few would admit to having been in one. In the 60s and 70s, several people claimed to have been abducted by spacecraft, but no one believed them. Now, as we enter a new millennium, we are bombarded by stories of cattle mutilations, abductions by space beings, and government compliance with aliens. Is this mass hysteria, or is there a horrifying reality lurking just beneath the surface? In spite of a growing number of credible cases, the FBI, CIA, NASA, the National Security Agency, NSA, and the U.S. Air Force, Army and Navy, refuse to publicly acknowledge any UFO activity. They are aided in their secrecy by silence. Thousands of citizens privately claim to have been victimized by aliens, but fear ridicule, job loss, marital rejection, and possible persecution, if their stories ever came out. Let us then face facts. More than 50% of all people who claim to have had contact with aliens, to one degree or another, are seemingly credible. We can dismiss many because they appear to be delusional, others seem to be making it up as they go along, hallucinating, telling inconsistent stories and bald-faced lies. But what about the little old grandmas with jobs and horses, or the police officers with sterling records, or the pilots who go to church every Sunday? Perhaps, even more importantly, reports began to emerge depicting human military personnel working side by side with the aliens, as if a secret coalition had been achieved. Were some of our fellow human beings working with the aliens? And, if so, to what purpose? Self-protection comes to mind as a first answer, but protection for whom? Is the average citizen protected? I think not. Many reports detailed the use of techniques that can only be described as brainwashing. Were the aliens working with humans to come up with methodologies for manipulating certain individuals? Were they building Manchurian candidates? Were they developing robotic killers as portrayed in Warren Beatty's forward-looking film The Parallax View? Or were they toying with human emotions? By the late 1980s, this question was not as dumb as it once sounded. Thousands of credible witnesses were coming forward with accounts of abductions by aliens. Their accounts included details of mind control, chemical dosing, dream manipulations, surgery and implants. If we were to categorize this group, we might say they were all victims of a kind of rape, a psychic rape. Even more alarming is that when investigated, many of these credible people report having been handled badly, abused, victimized and mistreated. Horror stories of actual rape and sodomy came out, and many of these reports were accompanied by the suggestion that the aliens were determined to inflict emotional pain. Many of the stories, collected from different parts of the world, had similar subtexts and began to sound like the aliens, if they existed at all, were not as compassionate as we thought. With the clamor and din of a growing crowd of victims, again at least half of whom had no reason to lie, it became obvious that the aliens did exist and that they were working on an agenda that involved an intense study of the human mind, specifically human emotions, focusing on erotic bonding and romance relationships. We should face the facts here. Abduction, in any form, is an invasion of civil rights, a kind of rape. Taking a person away from their willful course of life, for any reason, is a rape in and of itself. Taking someone against their will implies that the abductee is a powerless victim and the abductor is a predator who will do anything to achieve a specific goal. The combination of these factors kept the alien mission a well-preserved, highly guarded secret. Until now. Most UFO researchers will recognize that the aliens have some sort of mate selection thing going on. But it soon became apparent that they were simultaneously involved in an ever more sinister venture. Apparently the aliens were also experimenting with human emotions, with love and romance relationships, with male-female bonding dramas, with bisexuality and even erotic ideations of all kinds. But the one common denominator that draws the string around all of these cases is an undeniable pattern of obsession and unrequited love. Alien-directed bonding dramas and sexual variations almost always create an undercurrent of obsessive behavior, leading to painful loss and emotional emptiness. But in the case of abductees, the obsession was directed, studied, and stored for use in a huge database which seems to service the clandestine needs of the aliens, and, I assume, their human counterparts. Alien abduction research is not for the faint of heart. My associates and I have been under surveillance for several years. And, if we tell you the details, you will think we are paranoid, but that's what the aliens and their human supporters want you to think. They want to discredit everyone who even speaks about this topic in casual conversation. They want the topic itself to be of no value. One of the people in our group turned out to be a government plant who was reporting directly to intelligence authorities on our activities. We only found out about his eavesdropping because another member of the group, a person who also worked for the government in a consulting capacity, was called in one day and asked a long series of questions. The interrogator slipped up, however. In the process of asking his questions, he mentioned his surname to a subordinate. I took precautions after that. I have a 7-year-old son, who is the light of my life. What would I do if anything ever happened to him? Yes, I was growing a bit cautious. It is the tone of the times. You cannot investigate UFOs and abductions seriously without dealing with your own fears. Through sessions held in my home, and my internationally published articles, the word leaked out. I thought the neighbors would look askance at these activities, but the opposite happened. A neighbor, who I thought was a grumpy old man, went out of the way to tell me what good work he thought I was doing, and, on several occasions, people have approached me in public, to ask for help. I realized that a subset of abductees from all parts of the world were claiming that alien-orchestrated love obsessions were tearing their families apart. I repeat, the aliens seem to calculate exact strategies for specific love matches, with each bonding drama engineered to create the perfect conditions for their benefit. It is as if the aliens have found our true Achilles heel. Most human beings are incurable romantics. The following cases and interpretations will hopefully shed some natural light on a very dark subject. Chapter 1 Is the love bite real? Never before in the UFO literature has anyone focused so much attention on what appears to be an alien plan to manipulate love relationships. This dark and taboo topic, when fully explored, indicates that the aliens are up to no good. I say this only for those readers who may think all the aliens are here to act as our intellectual and spiritual benefactors. In truth, we do not know. There are far too many negative reports to assume benevolence, or simple curiosity or angelic prescience. Ascribing a positive motive to their actions is like hoping King Arthur will come down from a cloud and whisk us all away to Camelot. Aliens may not exist at all. Perhaps certain military personalities are using the alien idea to create a state of panic whenever necessary. But reports from my research indicate that mainly 3, possibly more, alien types are here with us, observing us and, frankly in some cases, interfering with our desires, our romantic encounters, our erotic dreams, and, more importantly, our MTE selection process. Some abductees believe they were experiencing the visitation of interdimensional beings, aliens who seem to have mastered time travel. If that is true, any number of beings could be here from any number of future chronologies. Another group, calling themselves contacts, feel that they are the chosen ones, and believe the aliens are here to raise our awareness of spiritual evolution. We may be evolving spiritually, but thousands of Earthlings have had the same revelation, without alien help. Other groups seem to champion the aliens who have mastered physical space travel. Still other groups focus on the aliens who are masquerading as angels of love and light. Few groups, at least none that I have been in touch with, is of the opinion that the aliens are really no smarter than us, but I am starting to come to that very conclusion. One thing is certain, we should never assume any alien strategy is entirely selfless. That said, I think we can defend ourselves. I am sure they are not all powerful. I must repeat, I am not a clinical psychologist, but if you will sit in on one of my abductee support sessions you will start to wonder why the aliens are so heavy-handed. By studying abductee relationship issues, we start to see the weak underbelly of the plan. Like a redwood splinter or sand in an oyster, the aliens' very presence in our midst is a form of irritation, regardless of their technology or mode of travel. Acting under the inspiration of the famed scientist Jacques Vallée, a man with impeccable academic credentials, several visionary researchers began gaining the trust of closet abductees, who were too embarrassed or frightened to come out in the open. After several years of plumbing through hundreds of self-published and even typewritten books, as well as private notebooks, tapes and videos, I found that the bonding dramas and obsessions orchestrated by the aliens represent a continuing pattern, which revealed itself soon after alien contact began. I say began here because most of these abductees were kidnapped several times. In my view, the phenomenon of alien-induced bonding is far more complex than simple human-to-human bonding. These alien-orchestrated exercises were only a precursor to what would later become dramatic love obsessions between two or more targeted partners, the descriptions and theoretical purposes of which form the basis for this book. I realized I was sitting on a small but growing mass of case histories, and other raw material. Trends were emerging, simple statistical tests showed significant correlations. What was once anecdotal and unscientific information was sputtering to become empirical hard data. A strange uneasiness came over me. Several times I stopped writing altogether, shelved the present work, and pledged never to finish it. Even when I stopped writing I was distracted by television reports of fringe wackies like Bo and Peep and the Heaven's Gate cult. You remember, the people who wanted to transpose themselves to a space vehicle traveling in the tail of the Hale-Bopp comet. But before we dismiss them out of hand, I should point out that several people interviewed Bo and Peep, long before they decided to kill themselves and found they were powerful people. News reports seen around the world revealed them to have amazing mind control powers. Still, most of their behavior appeared obsessive and anxiety-ridden, until after they accepted themselves as soul travelers, which became a mask of sanity allowing them to ritualize their suicidal fate. But there is another side to the story. Heaven's Gate was a collection process. Bo and Peep went around the country seeking lost souls. Many of these people felt true love and acceptance, some for the first time. Naturally they capitulated to the group in order to maintain their ecstasy. Here we see the alien-orchestrated love strategy operating in a group setting. For the past decade I have been dealing directly with the less charismatic, and more damaged victims, the folks no one sees or hears about, especially the ones who the UFO community rejected. Why were they rejected? I think their stories fell on deaf ears because their experiences and reports were not in keeping with the conventional wisdom, namely that the aliens are benevolent harbingers of higher consciousness. Or the assumption that alien abductions are limited to medical exams, implants, and hybrid breeding programs. No, the people I see every day are the abductees whose stories were judged to be too negative or just plain bizarre. As stated previously, people have approached me in public to petition for help with someone in their family. These are not famous people. The least sensational abductee is, in my opinion, a very important link, deserving of kind treatment. Many people who join cults are clinically neurotic, to use a mild phrase, but for the most part, they are not abductees. True abduction, documented and verified, is one of the rarest, and often traumatic experiences anyone can undergo. Bo and Peep claim to be contacts, but many of the Heaven's Gate members were tragic wannabes. Interviews with abductees are no simple matter. Your heart goes out to them and their families. They need support, but most people think of abductees as they do any undesirables. People who have been marked by the aliens are shunned, as if they were grotesquely disfigured lepers. Keeping a study, like the present book, honest and objective in the face of these realities has become the most difficult task of my writing career, mainly because the fear and loathing rained upon abductees and the UFO groups is easily extended to writers. Bogus stories are another problem. Some people are really good liars, and clearly I was fooled several times, but I have good research associates and other professional friends. It didn't take me long to realize that I needed to sort out the wheat from the chaff. In so doing, I found numerous verifiable case histories and anecdotal reports that set the stage for future research. A few of the more typical cases form the bulk of this book. To enable this research, I coined the term, love bite, to describe alien interference in human erotic and romantic relationships. I call it the love bite, because it hurts. The aliens' first encounter with their victims often entails actual invasive techniques. Scoop marks appear, injections leave tracks, sperm samples, body fluid and fertile ova are extracted. I call this process the primary love bite, because the experience is much like the bite of a venomous animal, such as a snake or spider. The medieval Italian trance dance called the tarantella was attributable to the bite of a venomous spider, and for the unrequited love of her chosen mate, Cleopatra, already married to her brother, caused herself to be bitten by a poisonous adder. The real love bite occurs later in life, when the abductee is bonded to another partner for the express purpose of creating a strong romantic attraction. But the sad part of it is, these relationships are either short-lived and almost impossible to consummate, or one partner is left painfully unrequited. Other love bite relationships appeared to be set up for the reproduction of specific children. A genetic bloodline study. More often than not, love bite relationships are dysfunctional, creating emotional chaos for one or the other partner. Following up on the love bite idea does seem to hold great promise. Rarely has alien interference in the love bonds and erotic dreams of abductees been discussed in detail. In Witnessed, Bud Hopkins touches on the human-to-human bonding exercises orchestrated by the aliens, but this is not the focus of his book and he does not suggest answers. In The Threat, David Jacobs suggests various modes of alien control, and the hybrid breeding program. He sparsely speculates on what else the aliens might be planning or inspires us with any useful recourse. It is apparent from my interviews that the aliens spend a great deal of time tracing bloodlines and researching the human genome. I suspect they are farming, like we would raise a hybrid horse or dog, but the sadness and grief they generate points to the farming of a certain type of human energy, that energy which results from love obsession, broken hearts, and unfulfilled relationships. No one has focused solely on the modus operandi of alien manipulated relationships. What the heck is going on here? I asked myself. Why is not anyone studying the victims as if they are telling the truth? And why are not other researchers in the UFO field paying attention to the most important aspect of human lives, our love relationships? Has professional peer pressure and outright mind control prevented us from feeling safe enough to just tell the truth? In either case, the alien or whoever is acting behind its image is serious, and not as mirthful as the hippies and New Age channelers have led us to believe. It sometimes bothers me to think I am alone in using non-hypnotic methods and crisis counseling techniques to help these emotionally exploited people, but I am committed to deeper exploration of what I see as the real agenda behind the alien presence. Their manipulated obsessions form a frightening social pattern unstoppable by anything as low-tech as a burglar alarm. Once I began poring over the material and comparing it to my own, I discovered a tragic link, a link that led me to form the love bite hypothesis. So many people have been abducted, so many have been torn from their families by divorce and other hardships directly attributable to the post-abduction trauma, that I wondered how anyone could think of the aliens as compassionate. How could any enlightened entity destroy family groups and force a life of misery on any child? I have a house in the desert and go there to look at the stars away from the night glow of the city. One night I remembered pictures taken from the Hubble telescope. The specific picture was a convoluted organic debris heap billions of light years across, which is a huge cloud-like galaxy that astronomers call the star nursery. But the beautiful imagery was soon sullied by the paradox before me. How could the extraterrestrials understand the inner workings of something as vast as the star nursery and yet not have mercy? In some far-off star center or time layer, the aliens must have made a kind of moral judgment on us, and characterized us useful, but unstable as a race. Perhaps they wanted to study our world, but why make the children suffer? This led me to realize that very few emotional issues appear as articles in UFO magazines. Most ufologists are hell-bent for the hard-edge, nuts and bolts explanations. Issues such as relationship manipulations, love obsessions, and other trauma-based behavioral problems are simply not credible enough. Yet, in my survey, I found substance abuse in many cases. In others I found people suffering as if they had just come back from Vietnam or Kosovo. It was as if these people were at war with themselves and the aliens, as if they were engaged in a kind of spiritual warfare. Murder is suspected, but not proven. Suicidal fixations, on the other hand, are well documented amongst abductees. I took account of the case histories, and tried to break them down into categories. I asked which ones dealt with rape and incest, heavy familial occult involvement, or alcohol and drugs and so forth. Some patterns emerged. I could see that obsession and tendencies toward addictions were common to people with unresolved abduction issues. Kidnapping victims, if they survive, always report separation anxiety, but what role does obsessiveness play? That's when I knew I had to publish my findings. The psychic and real scars found on abductees have been sugar-coated in the UFO literature for far too long. As stated in the acknowledgments of this book, I owe a great deal of gratitude to the late Dr. Carla Turner, professor of literature at North Texas University. In spite of her training as a scholar and teacher, she was chided when she told the world of her abductee status. During her short tenure in the UFO field, Dr. Turner published 3 revealing books on the alien abduction phenomena: Into the Fringe, Masquerade of Angels, and her masterwork, Taken. In Masquerade of Angels, Turner tells the shocking story of Ted Rice, when details of deception, reptilian aliens, sexual assaults, human cloning and alien interference into the everyday lives of abductees. The interference, which lasts long after the abduction, it is almost like an animal tagging program. Again in Taken, Turner gives us an inside look at the alien-human abduction agenda, describing the joint alien and human military involvement, alien implants, abduction memories of cloning and virtual reality scenarios installed by aliens into abductees' minds. Much of this came out in various ways on the fabulously successful television show, The X-Files. But The X-Files and other popular media tend to distort the real process of what the individuals go through. Turner made us see that the abduction and subsequent interference is tantamount to torture and, for all intents and purposes, it can only be defined as evil, almost as if the aliens were carrying out a banding or tagging program to observe animal migration patterns. I run the risk of sounding repetitive, but my research shows that the tagging experience often takes the form of an actual injection or inserted tracer or implant, which, I think of as a ritualistic bite, much like an insect or snake bite with adjuvant behavioral conditioning, which leads to changes to the victim's normal relationships. This bite may also cause radical changes in metabolism, life force, mental status and brain waves, thus the term, love bite. But the real love bite usually comes later, after several abductions. I noticed, time and again, that an abductee, once bitten, moves on to a life of virtual manipulation unless they receive help. This help can only be achieved by breaking the denial chain through knowledge, prayer and meditation on positive behaviors. Almost every abductee caught up in a love bite scenario loses interest in their spouse and often grows estranged from their families, even their children, during the duration of the love bite in order to obey an implanted obsession for an alien chosen, target partner. Figure 1, Recollection by an abductee involving manipulations by reptilian beings peering through an interdimensional portal which opened in his bedroom. It soon became apparent that the aliens had forced the abductees into an illogical and emotional corral, like cattle in a stockyard. This alien mate selection process almost always works itself out under alien-controlled trance states and occurs most vividly in dreams. So much for the Prime Directive, the non-interference clause I see so well adhered to on Star Trek. Some of the frightful material Turner exposed in her lectures and books left many people trembling. As would be expected, she was attacked and vehemently criticized for her passionate view of the alien-human abduction agenda, especially by those in the camp of the positive extraterrestrial theory. Unfortunately, the fiery-spirited Turner met an untimely death on January 9, 1996, months after discovering she had breast cancer. A series of anomalous events preceded her cancer discovery, including a near-fatal car collision. Needless to say, Turner's voice in the UFO community was cut short by some unfortunate circumstances beyond her control. I believe the UFO community needs to address some very deep psychological issues. Thousands, possibly even millions, of people are suffering greatly at the hands of a non-human intelligence over which we have no control. The greatest pain comes from broken hearts, ruined relationships, and shattered families created by the aliens. It is as if the aliens feed on human emotional energy. Chapter 2: The Quest. When I began this book, I ruffled a few feathers. The polite argument against my research usually took a skeptical tone, roughly as follows: everyone has relationship problems or love affairs gone sour. Now you are blaming everything on the aliens. My rebuttal is simple. I am not blaming everything on the aliens. I am not generalizing to the crazy world of tabloids, soap operas and romance novels. I'm not ascribing the love bite to everyone who has been cheated on or to every man or woman who found their spouse in bed with another lover. No, I am sticking strictly to my data. I am only talking about genuine abductees, a small, but growing sample of brave souls, who emerged from the shadows to tell their stories. For interpretation, all I can do is point to trends for future research. But after 10 years of constant observation, I am certain the love bite is real. I now invite you to enter the world I have been living in for the past decade. I invite you to meet some of the brave people who have come forth in attempts to cleanse themselves of a painful enigma they hardly know exists. All they know for certain is the pain they feel, every day. I ask you only to keep an open mind as you read through the material. I suggest you look at the lives of these flesh and blood people, from the perspective of a film or stage director. Imagine watching a children's puppet show. Raggedy Andy meets Raggedy Ann. They flip and flop to the tune of an enigmatic love affair. Raggedy Andy courts his beloved, wooing her to that anticipated kiss. Raggedy Ann is swooned into a spell of romantic love. The curtain closes. In the next scene, Raggedy Ann is yearning for her newfound love, but instead of running to embrace her, he walks off stage, leaving Ann grieving with unrequited love. In the alien theater, Raggedy Ann and Andy step out of the dollhouse into the real world. They become human, they have names and jobs and children, but they remain puppets, and the unseen puppet masters are the aliens. Perhaps a puppet show is a harsh metaphor for the lives of some alien abductees caught up in the dramas of the alien matchmakers, but I can think of nothing better. Are these alien orchestrated love affairs matches made in heaven, or is there something more sinister going on behind the veil of extraterrestrial contact? In the ensuing chapters, I will demonstrate what I believe to be alien-instigated human bonding dramas, relationship manipulations, love obsessions, and even spiritual warfare tactics perpetrated on the human abductee population. I repeat, I am not the only abduction researcher in the UFO field to have stumbled across this rueful alien trend. In Missing Time, Bud Hopkins emphasizes the questionable nature of the intruders. More recently, in Witnessed, Hopkins brought the alien orchestrated bonding phenomena to light by focusing on the famous Brooklyn Bridge case, also known as the Cortile case. In this case, a female abductee from Manhattan named Linda Cortile recalled being bonded to an FBI agent known only as Richard. This agent was, conveniently, one of the 3 highly reliable witnesses to her abduction in 1989. How frequent is the love bite? According to Hopkins, 14 out of 650 abduction cases emphasized alien interferences in romantic and emotional bonding, which is roughly 2% of his cases. He admits this is a small number, perhaps otherwise insignificant, but as the total number of cases increases and, if I look more closely, I see a pattern occurring in the statistical matrix. It now appears that the bonding interference elements in abductee relationships, i.e., the love bite, represents a separate experimental modality, and that the aliens seem to have singled out a subset of abductees, a small, but susceptible, group, who seem to fit a profile. So, although difficult to prove with such a small sample and still working within the confines of anecdotal data, I contend that at least 1/3 of all abduction cases may be the direct result of purposeful alien manipulation. This is more than double the number suggested by Hopkins. The number of cases where this love-bitten bonding experience occurs may be greater, as it only recently came into the full light of day. A close look at my data gives us one further parameter to help us differentiate love bite cases from everyday marital hassles and the agonies of the so-called normals who have not been abducted by aliens. With the possible exception of the Heaven's Gate cult, scant few love bite cases take the form of whole family abductions. In other words, the love bite usually occurs in cases where a single individual was abducted several times, often with the targeted partner, or in some cases, with whole groups of abductees being lined up for bonding in masse, as was reported in the Ted Rice case in Carla Turner's book, Masquerade of Angels. In doing research of this kind, I was forced to weed through the vague wannabe cases to locate the sincere abductees who had true love bite stories. These are the genuine abductees and they are suffering in silence. For them the toxins from the love bite, be they psychological or chemical, can only be extinguished by long-term support therapy, hypnosis, and perhaps prayer. I have thus had to be steadfast and rigorous in my approach to the material. From the cases I have seen in detail, it seems the love bite works best, for the aliens, with a solo victim who remains unaware of its occurrence and implications, a person who can be abducted several times, and then placed back into the normal population for observation. In a later chapter, the mask of sanity disguising the love bite will be explored more fully, but for now let us assume that we are at least onto something real here and that it needs to be explored fully by a great many more researchers. As a counselor and researcher dealing with abductees on a continual basis, I can safely say that the phenomenon is both real and decidedly unique to the psychiatric literature. Cases involving UFOs and abductions of this nature should be defined into a separate category. I stumbled upon the love bite construct inadvertently in my own work when several persons in my abductee support group described obsessive relationships, bondings that seemed to have been forced on them by their alien handlers. These relationships differed markedly from the non-alien love obsession cases we hear about, both in intensity and destructiveness. I must insert here the caveat that all of the cases included in this book are based on data taken from certified abductees, not psychotics. Like rape or robbery victims, abductees are usually very reticent and shy, as we shall see, and it takes a lot of guts to come out of the shadows to declare, in public, even to a small group, what has happened. The essential stumbling block to the abductee and their families is the denial, which is always the linchpin for the person's disharmony, dysrhythmia and angst. Once the denial is dissolved, the real catharsis and healing can begin, but with love-obsessed abductees the problem is further complicated by the lack of knowledge and public support, let alone the full conscious awareness of how they are being manipulated. Quite frankly, it is nearly a miracle, considering the extreme measures taken by the aliens to ensure secrecy, that we have discovered the alien-manipulated bonding process at all. Non-abduction related psychological issues such as eating disorders, substance abuse and mood disorders are commonplace and institutionalized in the context of healing therapies, but abductee support groups and therapeutic modalities in this field are a relatively new trend. If coming to a support group for the first time, it is like crossing a new threshold, entering a fresh room wherein one's self-esteem, sometimes already in tatters, may be torn apart even more by potential rejection. My goal as a researcher and counselor was to assure each individual that they were safe with me and the other group members. I therefore believe that my data has a kind of empathic validity to it, even if it is not purely empirical. I am sure I explored subconscious and waking areas that an abductee could never express through a survey questionnaire or with a traditional clinical approach. Once they saw that I, and the other members of the group, held forth a sympathetic ear, they opened up. Safety is a very important issue. And it is hard to come by. I would also like to point out that the majority of abductees who talk openly about their relationship issues are primarily women, although I have also received quite a few letters from male abductees who have come forward with classic love-bite alien manipulated love relationships. Many men have been abducted or are spouses of abductees, and they too require a great deal of empathy. The fact that I am a woman worked in my favor most of the time. The female abductees needed a girlfriend to talk to, and the men needed a feminine, non-competitive listener, like a sister. The men did not seem to be seeking macho-type buddies to share this experience with, and I hope their viewpoint is equally represented in the presentation. Chapter 3. Signs and Symptoms. The following points represent characteristics and symptoms of the love bite and of alien interference in the bonding process. The things I looked for and the patterns I saw emerging are part of these indications, but there are many more. I included them to allow the reader to see a formative process at work. The aliens, or rather those aliens who are conducting research into human bonding scenarios, seem to have worked out a strategy for maximum efficacy, a strategy aimed at goals I can only guess at. Their orchestrated mate selection process usually starts in childhood or teen years, for maximum emotional and sexual cohesion. The bonding also can take place in adulthood, where they meet the targeted partner only months after being bonded. In almost all the love bite cases, the abductee had experienced abductions since childhood. Usually an abductee meets another abductee during one or more alien encounters or in very vivid dreams. The pair may interact on a verbal or physical level, sometimes involving sexual foreplay and even intercourse. This can occur several times, over many years, until a strong connection is made. These selective interactions may or may not be recalled by either partner. Often only one partner will remember the experience, while the other has no memory or only a vague recollection. When both partners meet in real life, there is an instant sense of recognition and the couple may fall in love. There are variations to the pattern and sequence of events, but in most cases one partner falls in love more than the other and is left feeling unrequited. The relationship between the two bonded individuals is such that both persons are magnetically attracted to one another, often in unlikely situations. The love relationship setup may include a number of bizarre synchronicities, vivid dreams, psychic phenomena and bonding exercises during alien encounters. The bonding experiences are often intimate and sexual, such that one or the other develops an intense chemistry and love obsession with the targeted partner. They may even, on occasion, receive telepathic or post-hypnotic suggestions to become sexually involved with the person. Oftentimes, either abductee is married to or has an existing relationship with another mate. It makes no difference. The emotional, passionate and sometimes telepathic connection between the couple is unlike normal love relationships. Whatever normal is, anyway. It is often idealized and romanticized as the most phenomenal love imaginable, to the point of total spiritual immersion or indwelling of the lover and their beloved. A match made in heaven. Then the inevitable happens. It is absolutely devastating. The targeted love partner becomes switched off and the love-struck other half becomes painfully unrequited. The chosen partner usually has an initial love attraction or friendship with the other, yet loses interest, often right after an alien abduction or dream-like encounters. Some abductees report spontaneous remote viewing images of the intended partner in such a way as to elicit emotions such as jealousy, obsessive love, yearning and grievous unrequited love pangs. The alien manipulated love obsession process is akin to a carrot being dangled just enough to get the obsessed lover into a constant cycle of love and unrequited love. This may extend from relationship to relationship and is emotionally exhausting. In Appendix A, I include a summary that defines the characteristic signs and symptoms of an alien orchestrated love relationship setup. Note that some of these symptoms may arise in a normal non-manipulated romantic relationship or love obsession. The key points in being able to identify if such a relationship between two persons is alien orchestrated, is the aspect of multiple abduction histories for one or the other partner and taking into consideration the whole clinical picture as defined below. Memory loss and mnemonic fragments. Most verifiable love bite experiencers recall vivid dreams or virtual reality scenarios, albeit in fragments. Some describe their experience as a stage-managed dream, where both partners are present, usually in a bedroom setting or sexual encounter, or where both partners are being given subtle telepathic messages to initiate contact, either on a verbal level or more physical, sexual level. Oftentimes either partner appears to be in a trance or drugged state. Other stage-managed abduction dreams may have the partners in various situations as if they are being tested for their emotional and sexual compatibility or coerced into thinking that this person would make an ideal romantic mate. Here it is possible that the aliens are trying to manipulate a situation to gain control of specific children of the orchestrated union, i.e., a specific DNA type selection strategy. But there are other reasons for the matchmakings, as we shall see in the following case histories. Supernatural events. The vast majority of love bite victims report experiencing a great many seemingly incoincident events, fulfilled destiny predictions, synchronous observations, psychic flashes concerning the targeted partner and other paranormal or even mystical events. Meeting the person appears to be set up in a supernatural way, such that the couple may believe their eventual union to be divinely arranged. A first meeting of the pre-bonded partner may set off a series of déjà vu memories, flashback memories of previous abductions, or dream-related bondings. Some have even described it as a body memory of having made love to that person before. One or both partners have a strong sense of having known the person before, as if they knew them all their lives or have a strong soul connection. This is not a past lives regression experience, but rather something directly related to the present life. Increased psychic phenomena. Most abductees report a heightened sense of paranormal phenomena and visions during the love bite drama. This may include empathic and even telepathic communication between the love bite pair. Spontaneous remote viewing images and mutually shared dreams are commonplace. Other oddities may include the physical sensation of the partner's touch or energy field during fantasy, even when they are miles apart. This phenomena is also known as telesthesia. This includes common reports of a strong emotional, mental, and psychic connection between the partners, a rapture so strong, so immersing, that the desire to meet with the beloved is overwhelming. The connection can be so strong that partners have described it as a soul immersion in their beloved or literally having their souls joined together. This is reminiscent of the evolution of love of the divine as described by medieval Christian mystics like Saint Teresa of Avila and Ramon Lull, or by the I and thou process described by Martin Buber. A similar ecstasy or satori state can occur with yogis and especially in Zen Buddhism. In many cases one or both of the subjects in the dyad report several alien encounters. In a few cases the targeted partner did not realize him/herself to be an abductee. In many cases one of the partners was abducted and matched to an outsider and the original spouse was simply forgotten. After about 2 years of group work it dawned on me that the love bite dramas arose from each participant spontaneously. I was careful not to lead, coach or make suggestions as I did the interviews, and was always careful to avoid post-hypnotic suggestions. Multiple abductions. Most of the participants in my counseling sessions admit to being abducted several times. The realization that aliens have been interfering in our sex lives, probably for many centuries, was not just passed around as a new syndrome cluster by a bunch of overworked hysterics. Each of the participants saw the love bite idea, in their own way, before they came to group sessions, often referring to their plight as being caught up in spiritual warfare. I want to stress that, in all but one of the cases, the victims claim to have undergone multiple abductions. Clearly the love bite is not a one-time thing. Other researchers have discovered cluster cases of the love bite in areas going through intense UFO waves, where the victims were not sure they had multiple abductions, yet fit the pattern because of a wave of UFO abduction activity in their locale. In interpreting the following files, I focused on the bonding experience itself and the abduction-related interactions surrounding these alien-directed relationships, whether it became a dramatic love obsession, marital breakup or other kind of manipulation. I also want to make it clear that these cases are not plucked from thin air and are not derived from persons experiencing simple marital difficulties. Nor are they derived from subjects who were perhaps using alien abductions as an excuse for their perceived ills. I have done everything in my power to screen out anyone who distorts reality, although I do often have to tolerate them in the support group. I feel strongly that there is something sinister about the alien presence in these people's lives. The ramifications of these alien-directed bonding dramas are far more profound than one would suspect at first glance. Due to the limitations of the literary format, I have had to pull out a mere handful from the many cases in my files. I screened out the most redundant cases, because frankly some of them, although tragic in the extreme, just don't translate into print. Many abductees are so distracted by being thrown from crisis to crises, that they don't often see the connections, and continue to live in denial. From my perspective, the love bite affects every person differently, but there is one common denominator. Everyone in my study reported emotional exhaustion, as if the life force had been drained out of them. It soon became apparent that the love bite can turn once proud individuals into forlorn and disillusioned souls. This should give us a hint about what the aliens may really want. This information may come as an unwelcome shock to those who prefer the benevolent extraterrestrial theory. I am sorry to strike a negative tone here, my uncle was at Woodstock too, but frankly, I think many UFO enthusiasts are naive dreamers. My data shows the aliens to be, if not fully self-serving, then at least conducting themselves with depraved indifference. My data may push some hot buttons in the UFO, New Age and academic communities, but I must be true to my findings. This study is not meant as an attack on any particular religious, political or social group, although some fringe cults seem to be patently dangerous. That said, I feel I must focus on anomalous experiences as they were and are lived by real people. Naturally, many names and other minor details were changed to preserve the promised anonymity of the abductees and their families. Obsession. In most cases, one of the partners grows obsessed. This often includes the need to meet the targeted beloved, just one more time, and having to hear the person's voice on the phone, sometimes calling the person daily or several times a day. Just hearing the targeted partner's voice may have a calming effect on the obsessed lover. Extreme anxiety may be felt if the obsessed person cannot hear that voice pattern. In several cases, stalking incidents were reported. The obsessed partner usually claims the affair was based on limerence, or puppy love, a deep feeling of commitment, commonly expressed as love at first sight. Some abductees make sudden life changes, for example, changing jobs without warning or buying expensive cars and clothing. They may also make a radical change in lifestyle revolving around being closer to their object of affection. These changes often couple with the obsession to meet the targeted and usually rejecting person, just one more time, even if it means playing hooky from work or family affairs. More often the love-bitten partner goes out of his or her way to do things for the object of their obsession, often to the point of losing self-esteem. Due to the fear of rejection, or what the smitten partner perceives as an impending rejection, the love bite often leads into depression, and in extreme cases, suicidal ideation. Switching off. In almost every case I could track, one or both of the partners unplugs from the emotional connection and becomes glib, seemingly unfeeling and sullen. I like to describe the phenomenon as the psychic and emotional unplugging of the targeted partner. Unfortunately, the obsessed lover remains plugged in and continues to feel a strong bond. This happens in many non-abductee marriages too, but in the love-bitten cases, the switching off is very sudden. This unplugging can usually be traced back to specific abductions or even camping trips, where one partner was taken during the night. In addition, the alien-timed unplugging usually acts as the trigger for the flood of obsessive behavior, anxiety, low self-esteem and depression, described above. Other dynamics may come into play, such as insurmountable obstacles put into place between the love-bite pair, such that consummation of the strong love cannot be carried out. In any case, the relationship appears to be designed for maximal emotional tension. Emotional turmoil. All of us have experienced some degree of emotional turmoil, but the love-bitten abductee experiences a degree of turmoil tantamount to insanity. The powerful emotions of love and grief evoked by the orchestrated drama may cause one person to be inspired with creative energy, so that they write poetry, music, or any other art form of creative inspiration while the other partner's languishes in tedium. Eventually, the degree of emotional pain, the loneliness and the lack of support prior to coming to a support group, may throw the unrequited lover into suicidal ideation, mental and physical exhaustion or illness. Naturally, I make this point as a call for more support groups and a recognition of what the aliens are really doing to their chosen ones. Multiple bondings. When you read through the case histories, you will probably wonder if the aliens are conditioning their victims, but whatever their goals, they cannot be achieved in a single abduction. All of the abductees recall being taken on one or more occasions, although this realization is foggy at first. Eventually every one of the people I studied remembered fragments from different locales and scenarios. I also discovered that the piecing together of the abduction memory fragments increased when one partner began to see the facade. In other words, the love-bitten victim was more able to see the full picture only after they were no longer obsessed, or as alcoholics say, in the problem. Some abductees have reported the bonding experience to take place more than once. In other words, the same abductee may get bonded to another targeted individual. This may go on several times, throwing the love-bitten abductee from one relationship to the next. In these cases, the role-playing can be reversed, whereby the once obsessed love-bite victim is now on the other non-unrequited end of the bonding drama. Or, for some reason, the alien-directed bonding between two targeted lovers just does not work out, perhaps leaving the aliens perplexed. Some of the love set UPS are more powerful than others. Deeper insights into the variety of love relationship interference will be addressed in a later chapter. For example, in cases of reptilian aliens and their characteristic possessive stronghold on their female abductees. In these cases, one will notice a more profound effect in their love and sexual relationships. Alien-directed relationships may also involve homosexual relationships or even very strong long-distance internet and bicoastal friendships of an asexual nature. These must be distinguished from mutually shared abductions or dreams with other abductees where no bonding takes place. I hope you will use some of these signs and symptoms to observe the case histories as they play out.